Welcome to the Python tutorial. We've been walking through the Python documentation, and so today we want to look at more control flow tools. Now, besides the while statement that we earlier introduced in the previous video, Python uses the usual flow control statement that is known from other languages, but it does it in a different way. So we'll look at the if statement. And so for this, I'm going to create a new Python file. I'll call that if class. It is safe to say that perhaps the most well-known statement type is the if statement. Let's say, for instance, you want to input a number and you want to test that number to see if it's negative or if that number is 0, or if it's 1, we output that it's single, and if it's more than 1 or if it's anything else, we say that it's more. So you think of what I've just said now. We are trying to get an input from a user. We want to know if that input is less than 0. In which case, if it's less than 0, we reassign the value they've entered. We reassign it to 0, and then we print out to the user that this is negative, but we've changed it to 0. The other condition is that the value that the user entered might be equal to 0, in which case we want to output that it's 0. It might also be equal to 1, and we will output that it's. So let's just write this without further ado. This is going to be x equal to int, because, and we had to use that int. If you've been following in the previous tutorial where we looked at the balance calculator, we talked about this there. And so we input here, please enter an integer. I misspelled the integer. There we go. And so now we are done with the input. Let's now say if x is less than 0, what do we want to do? We want to first reassign x to become 0. And then we want to tell the user that print, although what you entered was negative, we've changed it to 0. And then the next question is, now we have a second condition where we said that if x equal to 1, we want also tell the user that the number you entered is 1. If it's 0, we want to say that it's 0. So we still have other conditions. Now, in this case, because we have more than one condition that we're still left to test, right? We have x equal to 0. We have x could be equal to 0. We also have x could be equal to 1. And then finally, we have x could be anything else, right? And so because we have something that we're testing that is more than 1 now, in that case, we use elif. And what elif means, it's just, the keyword elif is just a short for else if. So you imagine it like a statement. If this is less than 0, do this thing. Else, if it is equal to 0, do this thing. Else, if it is equal to 1, do this. So that's what this means. I'll talk a little bit more about this as we go along. So for now, I'm just going to write out the code. And again, as you can see from the previous video, when we wrote the while loop, we had this column to indicate that this is going to house a group of codes. So that's the same thing you see here. And elif x equal to 0, what do we want to do here? We'd like to print just simply 0. What's the next thing? If it's equal to 1. So again, we use elif. And we're using elif here because we still have 2 more conditions left. So elif x equal to 1, what do we want to do? We want to print single. And then this is the final condition. After this, we have nothing more left. And so because this is the final condition and there's nothing more left after this, we use else. Because that's the last thing. We aren't testing for anything after this. So we print more. And this is just how you use the if, elif, and else. Now, one thing I will note though is that in your if construct, you can have 0 or more elif parts. So it's possible for you to write the if construct without elif. So say for instance, you have two things to test. If x equal to, it's either is you want to test if x is less than 0 or anything else. So if it's not less than 0, we want to print out something else. So it's just two conditions. In that case, we don't need elif. All we need is the if and then else. And it's even the else part is also optional. So you can test something and choose not to use the else. And as we'll see later on, not in this video, but in the videos to come, you'll see that it's actually possible for you to have the if statement. And even though you want to test for two things, you just need to test for one thing and then you just return if that doesn't happen, and then you just write the other one like that. But for now, this is just what it is. This is what the if statement does. And so let's run this program and let's see if it's working correctly. So let's say I enter 42. You and I know that 42 is greater than 1. It's greater than 0. It's not equal to, and let me just interpret it correctly. The way this works is that it checks if x is less than 0. What is x in this case? 42. Is 42 less than 0? Oh, no, it's not. It comes here. Is 42 equal to 0? No, it's not. It comes here. Is 42 equal to 1? No, it's not. Then it comes here because that's the only thing. So there's really no condition here. Since all these conditions were not satisfied, it just prints more. So I expect to see that the output here is more. We'll try it with a negative value. And so let's say -9. We know now from looking at this if statement here that this is the condition that gets satisfied because x, in this case, -9, is less than 0. And so if we run this program now, and just because we have this x equal to 0, let's also print it out here and say negative change to 0. And I'll just give it a placeholder there and x here. So if we run this program now, if we run this and we have -9, what we should get is this negative change to 0 and then the result here, 0. And as you can see, we have negative change to 0. And so that's basically what the if construct looks like. Now, but if you are comparing the same value to several constants, or you are checking for specific types or attributes, you may also find the match statement, which we'll look at later. The match statement in this case will be more useful than the if statement, and we'll take a look at that sometime later. So thank you for watching this, and I hope it was helpful. See you in the next one when we talk about the for statement, which is perhaps like the brother of while statement. Take care. Have a great one. Bye.